Welcome back to the channel and another one of our design contest videos for the World Cup. And this one is Wasquamsett Club by axelvonfersen. Starting over because I accidentally have myself muted. We're going to play back tees, pin 4. He doesn't really have any other conditions, but I put medium and east winds on. My default for this is always going to be medium winds. I feel pretty much every course should play well in medium winds as default. But obviously high kind of depends. He says there's no real general northeastern vibe, but nothing particularly inspiring that, which is all good as long as the kind of everything makes sense, but no real life inspiration. We have the heather. There's some texturing stuff I would say is leaping out. So we have heather, which is always nice. It gives nice little patches of colour. We then have the plot kind of rising up to a road, and then we've got this area down here, which, if I'm honest, kind of feels like a shame we're not using. There's a lot of houses and stuff over here. It kind of felt, well, I think if you've got that coastal part, it would be really cool to try to use it at least a little bit. Hey, Sangroper. Yeah, lots of very thick heathery stuff, which we will come on to, because the heather is trickier than maybe it looks. The bunkering dug in nicely by the looks of things, and a good mix of grasses. Now, the one thing that is immediately leaping out to me about the surfacing is that we've got this really deep, heavy rough, green heavy rough texture, and you've got all of these kind of dried, browned out grasses and heathers and things on top of it, and those two don't really match so well, I wouldn't think. I would have loved to have seen the remove heavy rough brush used a little bit, particularly on Delta, where you can get that sandy look really easily. But you can see, if we're looking now down here, it just looks like it's been laid over very finely mown grass. This heavy rough is where you want the deep green, for me, is where you want to let that grow. And then, yeah, I'd probably just remove some stuff for that. Anyway, I'm going to have to be a little quicker on playthroughs today. I've got to go and pick my son up from school at 3 o'clock. So I'm hoping I can get 2 done in this time. I do really like the fence work you've done here. Shout out to fences as ever. And obviously the clubhouse is overgrown, because why wouldn't it be kept maintained on a really nicely manicured course? But yeah, let's go for the first hole. Okay, so we have kind of a narrow sort of concept. I do like it. I would love to be able to see these bunkers off the tee. And sculpting wise, this feels a little kind of, yeah, we can do this better. So I think it's a touch half done out here. You'd want to be building that in, and if you look at how someone like, I know, Dylan with his Ross bunkers does it, there's always sculpting coming out of them. Additionally, it wouldn't be rising up this high. You'd be lowering this part. I think flat bottom bunkers are a lot more complicated than just flattening the pan and then raising around the edges. You have to do a lot more work than that. And by chucking lots of them in a row, that's always going to get trickier to do. However, I do like the positioning. I guess downwind you can possibly try and clear all of them, but that brings that into play. I like the disconnected green. I think that works quite nicely. Oh, difficulty, by the way, we're going for CC sort of difficulty. I feel like with this one just playing out here works nicely. This one's nicely framed. I think that deep rough texture is kind of throwing me off a little bit with the fact that it's everywhere. But otherwise I like it. Yeah, and that was always going to leave a wedge in anyway. It's kind of the same with these bunkers. You can see how we've done the flattening here, and then it's just dropping off really sharply and then being the rest of the land. Tie your bunker sculpting in with everything else, and it'll make such a difference. The back one's pretty nicely done. This one's, yeah, these two are all right. There's just a few where, and then you've got this ridge here, which is then dipping right down and then up. Just take loads of time around the bunkers to make it all make sense. It will make the world a difference. I do like the creek. I think that works nicely, and yeah, it's a good first hole. No, shame. A good little mix of colours as well. Like, it does work well. Righty, hole 2. I feel like we could wrap the green around the bunkers a little bit more. It just feels a shame that this is all rough. Like, we could probably create room for a pin, especially with how you're evidently digging the bunkers into the green. Now, with doing this, you can get them tighter. The kind of way to do it is put your bunker down, then work the green around it as tightly as you can do. But I'd love to see a little sliver of green down here. That would be a really interesting pin. Just as is, we've also just hit a wedge shot, so hitting another, yeah, I don't mind it, but it would be quite cool to have something a little bit different. I'd just be trying to make as much of being really close to that water as you can. Ugh, not the swing. What was that? Now, the heather itself, it's huge. And as someone who's done this with a contest course before, the heather, you have to make it really big for it to render at distance. But you're also going to want it where it's not looking giant. It's that scaling of grass is so little to big. Whereas what we've done is just made it really big everywhere, which will work from distance, but when you look at it, it looks a little bit cartoonish. So that would be something I would be tweaking. Okay, so angle on this side, fairway falls away to here. Simple but pretty effective strategy on a long par 4. Let the wind bring us back up to that top sort of plateau. Yeah, I think bunkers are just still the thing. Hey, Jack. Like this one, for example, I think there's a bit of brushwork that we've missed there, which is why that bit's puffing up a little bit. They're not quite sure whether they want to be flat bottom or not. I would also probably be dialing down this slope because we're coming over it even from the middle of the fairway, and it's just, if you've not got that longest driver, that's putting a lot of pressure on. And just, yeah, the size of grasses, like you can see we've got the smaller stuff and then we just go directly to the giant. Right? There's got to be some scaling between that because otherwise it's going to stand out really quite hard. I do like the little walkways you've done. Those work really nicely. I don't know whether we need the fences on all of them, but you've got to tolerate that sort of thing. Pithy would say otherwise, I'm sure. Okay. I do appreciate that some of the angle plays on previous Axel courses have often felt a little harsh, where you have to be absolutely perfect to get close, like any kind of angle. I think this one, there's more of a, you just have a harder angle. If you don't. Okay, staggered bunkers is a nice change up. We haven't done that yet. Yeah. I will probably stop mentioning the bunker sculpting soon, but it's the bits around it, things like that. You can see that it's not flat at the bottom. You just have to really work hard with these and take loads of time. He is. We don't mind Ross, he's all right. Okay, a little bit of a maiden. I don't think this slope really is adding very much. It's basically just defending this pin and offering a tiny bit of backstop, but really this green is too small to have this sort of a mound here. I would also probably just be breaking up that sculpting. That's really severe as a drop. I think, to be honest, a lot of this feedback can really be summed up by like shades of grey. If you look at the planting, we go from one size directly to another. If we go from sculpting, we go really harsh straight down. Let's try and blend things generally a bit more, and I think that will be a huge benefit. I quite like hitting towards the hilltop. It just, plot design wise, this feels slightly at odds how we've got this big hill that could really be anywhere on the plot, frankly, but this is the kind of closest we're getting to the ocean. Like, surely it would be really nice to get a view of that if we could play along or something. I don't know, I'm not saying it's a routing thing. I think it's possibly the plot design. Anyway, we're probably going to end up... Oh yeah, we're in a bunker. Oh, did not get that at all. And we'll hit over this. And yeah, I do agree. The blender grasses looks really good at a distance. I think we can tidy up the planting a little bit, but I like the blends you've gone for. Of course, do my disclaimer at the start. First of all, know Axel pretty well, and therefore know he's looking for everything you can get out of this one. But also, if you're in a contest, I'm generally going to give you as much feedback as I can, both positive and things to work on, and try to be really critical. Ugh, 2 over. Rubbish. All right. So one thing I'd say on this hole is we have already had that reverse camber sort of hogs back on the 3rd. So it might be kind of nice to get away from that a little bit. There's a ton of fairway here to use, but obviously we don't really want to be. This bunker, yeah, again, it's like the mound and it feels a long way away from the surface. Like, drag the bunker out a little bit. Just, it's the sculpting, really. That said, we're just going to smash over it, and yeah, I know I'm losing the angle, but I do at least get to play more into the slope. I like the green shape. And we got some hummocks. But even then, again, they're just little pop, 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 pop. Like, try and take a bit more time with them, try and make them tie into one another, a bit more random. I think digging around with the sculpting more, you'll get a lot more out of it, and it's fun. I say this working on a Ross project of sorts at the moment. I've got a little bit of an idea of how much you can go and how severe. It's things like 3-foot raises, but with a tiny brush. Stuff like that. Bits of click and drag, just like randomized stuff. And again, that kind of comes back down to that blending. Morning, Foggy. Lovely setting for par 3 here. Okay, and it's basically just a back to front green. I like the large green size here. I think that works really nicely. Propped up well. These bunkers are slightly better, but there's still a bit of the same stuff. But good distance variation certainly for the par 3, given the previous one we played was just a flip wedge. Oh, didn't quite come back. I'm appreciating the use of trees on this course. I think that's done really nicely. There's not too many little clusters. You've really bought into the openness. I think that's working well. Okay. I kind of feel like I've played this tee shot before. We've got reverse camber again. We're kind of hitting over a diagonal string of bunkers. It's... yeah. What is this Twitch thing? I know, right? Occasionally I do stuff on it. Okay, that was a terrible tee shot. I mean, I can't really complain because I've hit such a bad tee shot. But I think fairway sculpting wise, you can see we're down here, and then it's risen up pretty sharply to this point, and then risen up to the bunker, presumably because it's trying to make the bunker flat. So we flatten that out. I think just keep working that flattened brush down the slope, make this all a bit more gradual. It's little things, really. This is not going to end well. Or it might. Great bounce. Yeah, morning. We're going to do, the attempt is to try to do 2 playthroughs in about an hour and a half. If I can do that, then I can still pick up my son on time and not be a bad father. But it depends how quickly Axel's goes. At the moment, it's going fairly quickly. I think... Yeah. Okay. Oh, so it is drivable potentially, but it brings the creek into play. Golf is more important, obviously. Yeah, virtual golf must be. I like the green complex. I like the little mounds and things in there. Even if you can probably randomise them a little bit more, so it's not just one here, and basically bisecting into quarters. I still like what we've got here. The thing that's not quite working for me on this one is the fairway, which just looks all very straight, and then there's a creek, and I don't know, the rectangular squared off shapes aren't totally working for me on this one. I do like the bunker shapes, particularly this one, I think works really nicely with the scraggly kind of edges. Well, should have seen that coming. It's fine, we're safe. Yeah, Matt's was good. Liked Matt's. Oh, and another very fast. And apparently 2 very fasts is the way to play this hole. Oh no. Oh no. It is kind of 11, I guess. I do fit, well, minus the green site. I feel like the tee shot's potentially a little bit all or nothing. But there are the options there. I think it's just the spacing and the amount of like layup zone because of how wide the creek is. It's like either you're going for it or you're laying up with a 3-wood, really. But I don't mind that too much. At least it was a different type of tee shot to that hog's back we've had a multiple times. Okay, so we're looking at the hill stuff. If you remember the previous hole 7, we talked about smoothing out that slope. I think here you've got an example of the green's really, really high, and it's all, look at where our landing zone is, it's really low, and then our tee's a bit above that. You'd want this to be far more gradual, and you get a better look, because the bunkers are looking kind of squished on the left-hand side, and the right-hand side, they're looking a bit squished down. It's because it's not quite gone with a gradual hill. It's like we go to here, and then we go straight up. And I think that's kind of what's hurting this one a little bit. I do like the green, false front. Shout out for Jack. Yeah, I like the green. I like where it's positioned. Oh, tempo's been really bad today. Okay, wanted a long iron into this one anyway, so it's all good. It's fine. I think from here you can see the point about the grass as well. It's very big. Might have to sit a little closer to the computer. I'm going to blame my tempo on that. Yeah, exactly. But massive penal false front with like the rest of it acting as a punch bowl, I think works really nicely in combination. So I'm all for this one. Yes, my main take on that is the planting's a bit big. I do like the planting scheme. What I think is not working for me is the heavy rough texture underneath it. And if you'd browned out the heavy rough a little bit, particularly being in Delta, that would work really nicely. You can also kind of see the mounding is purely there to house the bunkers. Like if you follow this line round, I'd be wanting to tie that in more. Because I like the bunker shapes here. it's, yeah, the sculpting could just be neater, but I've said that enough. Same sort of thing here, like we've talked about blurring and blending quite a lot. You've got fairway, flat, 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 dip, massively flat. Take your time with this and work the things together and try and, like, the more you can look at how to tie things, like the term in architecture is tying in, I would look at that as much as you possibly can. There's a great series on Fried Egg about that, I think. Ooh, okay, as a par 5, that pin's going to be pretty inaccessible. Which I guess is okay. I think, I mean, it's effective. I just don't know if that's going to be much of a fun pin. The others, though, should work quite nicely. Yeah, 5-iron. Nope. Let's go find a bunker. Yep. That's it. Yeah. And the bunker sculpting's my biggest takeaway on this one, generally. I've enjoyed the holes. I wouldn't say you've taken many massive risks with the hole designs. Huh. The other thing is, if you'd done the burned out heavy rough and done that, this would not feel as kind of out of place as it does. Because this is quite a cool feature, although again, I would look at blending. Like we've got high and flat, here's a feature, low and flat. I think we can we try and, anytime you've got anything like this, you try and raise up one side more than the other, lower another, just make it a bit more random, because you just don't want this looking like it's two-tier in the middle of the fairway. That's it, we can hit over it pretty nicely. It's an interesting feature, I think, not maybe making the most of it. I'm not sure on the green. I do get it. I think if you have had to lay up, how far would you have if you had to lay up back here? 150. I guess it's doable. Yeah, I might need a few more plays on that. There we are. Hey, we hold a putt. Okay, 190-yard par 3. One thing that immediately leaps out is that, like any other hole, you've got a load of green grass in front of it, and then that fairway apron starts a long way away. It just makes this look kind of a little empty / unfinished. Like this would have been a perfect place to bring those grasses in front, and I think that would transform this golf hole. Like little patches of that, very Heathland-esque, like little walkways cut through it, would make this absolutely pop. It does also feel maybe a little small as a green. I don't know, there's something about this that just feels squashed. We have also done the 190-yard back to front par 3 on 6, 8, one of them. So it'd be nice to do something a little bit different. It is a really nice site. Like, so much of the hole works really nicely. That would just be the bit that would take it over the top for me. Are we going to stop rolling? Yeah. Slightly better than at least being off the green, which was a possibility. Still, take a long par through the par. Same thing here with the grasses. Like, I think if you've gone for such a grassy side, bring bits in, which you've done on this side. This one's just filling a lot of ground. It's also back to that, you've done this tee shot a number of times where it's kind of that switchback hole in essence, where the fairway swings way out one way but then it swings back into the green the other way. So unless I can carry these bunkers, I like the green site, think this tee shot is fine. It's just diminished by the fact we've had a lot of them. Yeah, I'd also be lowering this as much as possible. Like, I would want to be showing off the creek in front of the screen as much as you possibly can do. And loads of that comes down to just really careful sculpting of the fairway and that hillside and making sure nothing's in the way. Very cool green site. Wish it were a little bit shorter. So a green site like this, the reason I say that, a green site like this, in my opinion, you want everyone to have a go at, and you want everyone to bring in that risk of going for the water and just tempting people. Therefore, this green, for me, this should be your shortest par 5, that is like, whatever happens, everyone can reach it. That's kind of how I tend to do my core and Crenshaw ones, where it's just like, that's the one I know I've put loads of danger around the green. I want you trying to take that on. The green itself is similar comments to 4 with that back runoff. I think we can just make it a little bit more random. It's the kind of symmetry. I think that's what I was struggling with on the other hole as well, where I wasn't sure about the green. It's this kind of V-shaped symmetry that I'd lose because it just feels a bit more manufactured than maybe you need it to be. I do like the bunker in the layup zone as well. So that makes me think if I am going to lay up here versus here, I think your layup options here are really good. I would probably give a little bit more fairway out here as well. Just let people play themselves into that approach shot. I am going to play myself sort of into it, but I think that's my best bet. And then we try and hit a pitching wedge flop shot, because, I mean, you never go around a golf without playing one of those, right? To perfection. I am enjoying my round. Like, it's a nice, pleasant round of golf, and oh, here looks like we're doing some more interesting stuff. I love the idea. The execution isn't quite there because we've gone again really flat, followed by really, really steep. And I think if you were going to do this, I would again be using the remove heavy rough brush, like let's make this rock face or something like that. But really, I'd love this to be much more cambered. I do like the pointless fairway down here. That makes me smile. And I like the green site. And it's just how this presents, like it's partly a game thing, I guess. Oh, but we can just hit down here anyway. Oh. Well, why would you... Huh. I was judging this based on the fact that I thought it was just a hit driver anywhere and then whatever. The moment that becomes an auto driver, I don't think this works as well. I would love for you, especially if you've got loads of space to take the tee back, I would love for this to be a kind of, maybe if you swing for the fences, you can just about make it down here. But like, yeah, I think you could have done much more interesting stuff with camber with that one. That's it. Let's try. Again, I think the concept of the hole is a good one. It's just kind of the execution, that blending once again with the sculpting would make a big difference. Oh, we should have time for another one, which is good. Pseudo Redan, same thing with the big drop-offs. I know it can be a feature, I just think it's neater when tied in a bit more. Oof. This. That's gonna need some luck. Did not get it. You hang your head in shame. Love the grassy planted area behind this hole. Like, it looks really, really good. I have no idea where I am on this plot, which is always fun. I'm assuming, well, it must be on a perimeter. Okay, so we've got this really cool hillside, which sadly doesn't really feel like it's coming into play that much. Because even if I hit middle, this would have been one, I think, as for how you're using your features, I know, having worked on the St Gerald's plot, my gut feeling is that you are not maybe fleshing out your plots as much as you can do before routing, because this would be one where I'm looking at this and going, well, here's an ideal spot for like a par 5 benched in on the other side of this, so you have to take on this massive hill at some point. I think that would make a really interesting hole, but instead we've got this really big, cool feature. It's not really that integrated into the hole. I do like the punch bowl green. Yeah, just feels like a little bit of a missed opportunity. Because as is, this punch bowl sort of hole could have kind of gone anywhere on the course. That I would love that hill to be like, if you've got a big feature, really buy into it. Okay, 17. We've had a lot of these longish par 3s. So that's the let's just have a little look. That's the third one that is like 190 odd, I think. 6 190. 15 played 190 because it was a back pin. 17 plays long as well. I'd just be a little wary of the distances that we've got. It's cool to see the clubhouse and like we're working our way back. I think the other thing I would say is we've had a lot of downhill tee shots where it's, and I've got a suspicion. I guess not here. Yeah. I think you have a tendency to just raise the tees up. So like here's a good example. And it can actually make your sightlines really hard to work with because you've raised everything up and suddenly it's hard to get everything back in view. Yep, so we've got another 2 here. You can see they've been raised right up with that single brush click or a couple of brush clicks. You know what I mean? Same with this one. Like I would be benching this down into the hill a bit more. Stuff like that I think will make a big difference as well. Anyway, that's this one. This is sort of the ground game one, isn't it? Try and cut a 5-iron in. Oh, no, I've overdone it. Damn. Grab. Yeah, not too bad. I think the greens have generally, like, I've generally been pretty well sculpted. I had a weird break just then, but yeah, it's kind of all going one way above the hole and then the other way below the hole. That's fine. Yeah, again, we're on a really raised tee, and you can see the sculpting bits down here, like where you've raised it and how that's struggling with the front, and it's preventing bits of sight lines, and we've got the dip down here and things. If you look how high above the previous tee we are, I think that would be a pretty good indicator for you as well. Okay. More hummocks, false front. Oh, and a penis green. Yes, I would agree with that as well. Can I hit somewhere down here because I'm not sure I totally carry all of those. This one works much better going gradually uphill. I feel like the layup options could be a bit more interesting than just here's a bunker in the middle. I wonder whether we could work with the side of the fairway, or is that the first centerline bunker? Maybe, but I don't mind it. As is, we can't get here anyway. There we go. And laid up below the hole. This hole just feels a little bit straight on, perhaps, like maybe winding the fairway out right and then having that green just over here. Could see this being a really cool dogleg working up this way, and then you've got the angles to play with more with this. But if you look at the fairway itself, the shaping's a little awkward. Just around here, it doesn't, yeah, I don't know. Lots of the rest of it's tried to channel Ross quite nicely. I don't think that would be, it doesn't fit his influence maybe as much. Oh, well, we managed -2. Cool. Well, I've tried to give you everything I can do, as promised. And there's a lot I liked. I think it's a really enjoyable place to play golf. There's lots of the environment that gets these really cool big views. That works nicely. I think lots of the holes are definitely less penal than usual with like you're starting to make it so the angles are, I guess, you're not in an ideal position if you're wrong side of the fairway rather than you've got no shot if you're on the odd side, wrong side of the fairway. Good example is hole 1, I thought was a really nice opener. And there's a couple of others. I do think there's a couple of others where you're maybe veering a bit too far away from that. So that the long par 4, was it 16, that punch bowl? Maybe. Would have been one where I think it could have benefited from being tucked further behind it to make that big feature matter a bit more. I think my main message, and this is partly having worked on a collab with you as well, so I saw little things there that I think I can now recognise more in here as well. I would 100% be working more on the plot before I start routing, because I think you traverse a plot really nicely. I'm not sure you necessarily always bring out the best in it. Like both of those previous 2 ones have, so this and St Gerald's, for example, you've got the ocean as just nothing more than the backdrop, and it would be really nice to do a bit more with that. Even if it's just creating a view, you can bet that someone like Donald Ross would be finding a par 3 that gave an ocean view somewhere, even if it was from miles away from the ocean. That would be one. Secondly, it's that kind of blending between either environment, planting, sculpting, tying things in. A really good example is that bunker sculpting, which I think is bunker sculpting would be my 3rd point, just generally. That's never been something I think would be fair to say that's come easily for you. And it still needs a bit more work, particularly when you're sculpting around the bunker. You've got to work hard to tie it into the rest of the land. But positives, I thought a really nice environment, a load of really nice holes. There were none that I thought were just like, this does not work. There are a lot of really solid ones, and I'm sure I'll pick out more with future playtests. And the environment's really cool. There are a couple of par 3s I thought were really pretty. The creek's really nicely done. Yeah, that's basically it. Hopefully that helps, and we'll see you again for another playthrough. Those of you following along on Twitch, refresh shortly and we'll be right back.